All right, Bow Valley College faculty. This is Sarah McKay, and I'm coming to you with the fall episode of You're on Mute, the BVCFA podcast. Before we dig into the content today, what I'd like to do is take a moment to acknowledge that Bow Valley College and the BVCFA operate on Treaty 7 territory. So the college and the FA aim to uphold the intention of the numbered friendship treaties from the perspective of Indigenous peoples. We also remain collectively accountable to respect Indigenous peoples' legal and inherited rights, recognizing we are all treaty peoples. Through our words and actions, Bow Valley College Faculty Association honors the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, Kaana, and Piikani First Nations, as well as the Ayahe Nakota, Wesley, Chiniki, and Bearspaw First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. We also recognize the connection and autonomy of the Métis Nation Region 3 within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We join all nations in celebrating the unique histories, traditions, and cultures of Indigenous peoples as we continue our journey on the road toward reconciliation together. Well, everyone, this has been, I guess what I really want to start with is hi. It's been an eventful fall, and I'm coming at you partway through October because it's been such an eventful fall. So, we've all had some interesting things happening in the last few months. And so today's podcast is going to be a bit shorter than what you may be used to. But the focus that I have for you today is really on wellness. We're going to talk a little bit about some politics and some things around the current situation that we are finding ourselves in the world today. And of course, because we have to talk about it, but the later portion of the podcast, I encourage you to keep listening because I've got some really great content for you today. So again, my name is Dara McKay, and I am your host for as long as you will have me. Also the VP of Communications and Engagement for your Bow Valley College Faculty Association. So we are going to start with what's up in the FA. Well, let's start with what's up in the FA today. I've got 3 segments for you: what's up in the FA, news and notes, and from the faculty. And I'm telling you, the from the faculty is what you're going to want to stick around for as always. But here we have what's up in the FA. There's been a lot actually going on in the last couple of months. We've had a couple of things shuffling around, which has been pretty cool. So we had some new people come on, and we've just been kind of onboarding them through the summer. This last month in September, we've had our first executive-to-executive meeting with the college executives discussing some of the really big things happening, like, for example, the vaccine mandate and what it is we're doing about that and what we need to do about that. And we also have been able to meet together and have our own meeting where we're talking a lot about those things and how we can deal with them as well. We do have some new members and some shuffling to make you aware of. I'd like to welcome as VP Professional Development and the leader of the PAC, and her name is Eugenia. And I want to make sure I pronounce her last name, so Agadzanov. So Eugenia, we're super excited to have you, and this is our official You're on Mute podcast. Welcome to that position. Lindsey Bonifant, who used to be our VP of Professional Affairs, is moving on into a role as past executive in the Faculty Association. So we're excited to still have Lindsey on board, but in a different capacity. And Eugenia is stepping into those shoes, and we are very excited to see what Eugenia can do. As an aside, I want to just mention that the PAC really needs some members, and I know many people have reached out to Eugenia already, so just kind of watch your inboxes for messages that way, and look for some new and upcoming wonderful Wise and Well sessions and different things that they'll be doing under the new leadership. So that's what we have. We've welcomed some of the other people back in and into the Faculty Association. And so the rest of that just remains the same. We have what else is going on in the FA? You've got a newsletter coming up in the fall. Your fall newsletter should be coming out shortly. So do, again, watch your inboxes for that. We're currently building content for that, so that's super exciting. The biggest, most exciting thing that's coming to you from the Faculty Association is the new BVCFA.com website. We're so excited. Like I'm telling you, so excited. There are still a few things that we need to learn. Us on the back end of it, we need to first learn how to get membership in there so that you have a login to access sensitive content and protected content and forms and things like that. But the whole site, other than that, is functional. And so all we're doing is figuring out now, getting our logins. We've got tutorials that we need to watch from Creative Elements, the company that built the website for us. If you haven't had a chance to go and look at it yet, please take a few minutes out of your day and check out bvcfa.com. The website is beautiful. There's some really amazing features. So the thing that I'm probably most excited about is the accessibility menu. So when you go to the site, you're going to click on this little man at the top left-hand corner, this little person, and you're going to have an accessibility menu that can change font styles. It can change things to make it dyslexic friendly. It can change contrast for people with visual impairments, and there's lots of other good accessibility features. It can make the font bigger, etc. So have a peek at those things, and please just wander around the site and see what you can find out. There's a lot of user-friendly navigability in the site, and so we're very proud of the product that's come and very excited to be bringing this to you. So you want to watch that website, and as soon as we've got login credentials for you, you will know, and then you can access all of those wonderful things that are just for members of the Faculty Association. So, all right, that's what's up in the FA. We're still working on things for you. We're moving into bargaining, and you've been getting some bargaining updates via email. Just continue to watch that because we are hoping to really get the ball rolling pretty soon. And we're looking for a couple of people to sit on the bargaining committee. So just kind of, you know, if you're interested in representing, maybe reach out to Phil Flagel, and I'm sure he'd be happy to get your perspective. What else have I got for you? That's pretty much it. It's the fall. We're all super busy. It's been kind of nuts, right? Really kind of nuts. So I guess let's move on. So here what I have for you is our news and notes. News and notes, I honestly, the news changes every few hours, and there's been a lot going on. In the last couple of months, we've had a federal election. We are having a municipal election. There's so much going on in the college. There's so much going on in the province. And as I'm sure you're well aware, vaccine mandates are coming down from post-secondaries all over Alberta. And we're going to hear in a little bit here from President of the BVCFA, Penny Marcotte, about an open letter that she and a number of other Faculty Association presidents put out to the Minister of Advanced Education and the Alberta government in general to ask them to take responsibility for some of these things that colleges and polytechnics and post-secondaries have had to take on and field in terms of policy. And so it's interesting what's been happening. You know it, we all know it. Bow Valley College is going mandatory vaccine by October 22. And, you know, that's a huge step, right? That's a huge policy step. And, you know, we've been hearing different things from members on either side and somewhere in the middle of this idea. And, you know, it's a challenge. No matter where you come at this from, it's a challenge. And yeah, it's a sticky situation that we're in. And I'm really hoping that because of this ongoing craziness that just doesn't seem to want to let up, that we can take some time today to focus a little bit more on levity. And, you know, yeah, we're going to get into the hard content, and yeah, there's a lot of news, and I don't need to tell you all the news right now. I don't. You know it. You're sick of it. I don't know. Maybe you're not. I am like, I'm thinking every conversation I have revolves around COVID and restrictions and ICUs and numbers and things like that. And man, we're tired, hey? We're tired. That's the news. I don't know. It's kind of all big jumble. The notes are, we're tired. And I think at this point in time, what we really need is to reach out and be a supportive community to one another and know that like we're all in this together. We're here, we're experiencing this all together. And man, like we could step up and just kind of like be there. We can commiserate together, you know, we can also uplift and encourage one another. And I want to also encourage everybody to ask for help when you need it, right? Know where you can go to ask for help when you need it. And that's my 2 cents about the news, because the news is, oh yeah, yeah. I want to use stronger words, but we're going to go with the phrase dumpster fire. It's kind of how I feel these days, guys. Okay, folks, listen. I've got Penny with us today, and Penny's going to talk to us a little bit about this letter. I posted it on our social media. You may have seen it. You may have heard about it. It's on our Twitter feed, Facebook, Instagram. By the way, follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. She wanted to tell a little bit of the why and like what the letter was about and what they're asking for, right? Like, what are they asking the government to do? So, without further ado, here is Penny. All right, everyone. Joining me today on the podcast is Penny Marcotte, the president of the Faculty Association. Welcome, Penny.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you. I'm trying not to laugh. You're making me giggle. Okay.
You could
this is
totally
serious
laugh.
business.
Sure. Well, does it have to be? Can we make it unserious? We could.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little levity.
A little levity. Who doesn't need a laugh at this point?
We all do. And when we get into the nitty gritty of this letter that we're going to discuss, we're going to all need a little bit of a belly laugh at the end of it. Yes. Not because of the letter, but because of the world. So I invited Penny onto the podcast this episode because Penny and 7 other Faculty Association presidents have put out an open letter to the government. You may have seen it on all of our social media, and by the time the release of this podcast, this will be a few weeks ago. So we're hoping that it's going to be gaining some traction. So Penny, I'm curious to know the why, like what made you all decide to get together and do this?
Well, so I have to say, I was approached by Alex Calderaru at Norquest, and we've done this in the past where there are a collection of us that feel pretty passionately that the institutions have taken on the burden of the responsibility for dealing with the pandemic, and it's not that any business doesn't have that responsibility, but it's just the fact that we are mandated to be open. The province mandates that we're open, fine, then help us, give us guidance. And over the summer, it became very clear that the province and our government was not going to update their guidance based on our more virulent strain, Delta, that was coming down the pipe and gaining traction. And already over 80% of cases in Alberta in the summer were Delta, and guidance had not been updated. And we knew coming into the fall, post-secondary is particularly susceptible to transmission just because of the numbers that we have on campus, the demographic that we have. We knew, and the amount of time that we spend face-to-face. So the whole idea about post-secondary is congregating in spaces and having discussions and talking to each other for lengthy amount of time. So that 15-minute, as long as you're not around somebody for 15 minutes, you should be fine. Oh my gosh, like post-secondary, when are you not around somebody for 15 minutes? So anyway, so we realized guidance wasn't being updated. The burden of the responsibility was 100% shifted to the institutions. And we realized it was not their fault. They were doing the best that they could, but we felt as a faculty, it was up to us to actually step up. And Alex kind of just sort of it always starts with a text from Alex like, hey, anybody else feeling the same? And then a whole bunch of us just jump on and go like, yes, like let's actually have a conversation and see what we can do about it. So, and then that's how that plan was born. And yeah, so just other like-minded individuals at other institutions who are all, this is not a unique problem to any of us. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how it started.
And
Okay.
that's a huge piece of frustration too, because if you, as you said, if you're mandating something, you,
Yep.
you gotta you gotta provide some framework for that, right? And you're right in saying like the colleges have kind of been left blowing in the wind, and well, not just colleges, post-secondaries, and it's just like frustrating. So let's talk a little bit about the content of your letter. Um, you talk about vaccines. You talk about earlier waves of the pandemic. You talk about, I love this, we are greatly disappointed in the abdication of responsibility that our sector has encountered from the government of Alberta in recent weeks. Some really strong words in here. So
Strong but accurate.
yeah,
Like, that's
yes,
actually, I don't know
yes.
anybody who could argue against any of those points.
Hmm.
So, and again, like it does sort of come back to the point. You mandated us to be open. You did not offer even appropriate guidance for what we were dealing with, and then you completely shirked any fiscal or, I would say, even ethical responsibility in helping any of these institutions manage what we
Yeah,
were going to have to face. You're about
yeah,
to put thousands of individuals on a campus together, all across the province, all across campuses across the province. And we figured, even with our 8 institutions, it was actually funny yesterday. We were trying to figure out how many faculty are we even talking about that we're
oh,
dealing with? Like, how many do we represent as the 8 institutions? And it was actually a really funny text string. Everybody just kept throwing their numbers. So I was like, okay, BVC is this, Northwest, and then someone, I was like, who's got a calculator? Like, just going at them up.
get it.
And yeah, then we realized there's 3,500 faculty at our institutions
Yeah,
alone. And then how many thousands of students on top of that? And I'm like, the government cooked up a perfect storm for COVID transmission and did not offer guidance, did not offer any financial support for that. It was
yeah.
anybody's problem but their own.
Hmm.
And that is just completely unacceptable. Just unacceptable. Yep.
I agree.
I know.
I agree. So you have some calls to the government and in your
Yes.
letter here. So we, the undersigned, call on the government to follow the lead of their counterparts in other Canadian jurisdictions. Um, yes.
Yes. Yeah. I kept
um,
joking this whole time. I'm like, if BC could just take power of attorney over Alberta just to get us through this 4th wave,
just just
it
help
would
us out
just,
and get us through this.
if you could just sort of just tell Kenny what to do just to get us through this 4th wave and actually just, yeah, responsible measures, that would be great. But sorry,
Yeah.
I cut you off. Continue.
No, totally good. So that one is about, oh, and also mandatory province-wide vaccination policies for
Yes,
post-secondaries, because a lot of post-secondaries have gotten on board with mandatory vaccination, but that came from the post-secondaries themselves. Am I right?
exactly. Yeah, and it kind of started with the big 3. So U of A, U of
Yep.
C, U of L, right? And
Yep.
as soon as they went, and even the fact that with with all the sort of power that each of those individual institutions wields, they even came together as a collective to
Mm,
just, and I could see no one wanted to stick their neck out alone because you're going against the guidance and direction of the province.
yeah.
So as soon as those 3 went, I was thankful. Like, I was so thankful for that action because that actually opened the door for the smaller institutions to follow suit. I am so proud of Bow Valley getting out. I mean, we announced ours on the Friday.
Yep.
What was that, September 3rd? I can't even remember anymore.
No,
Sorry, this month feels like a month.
it's
This
been a
feels like
fog.
2 years long. Okay,
I know.
but
Yeah.
earlier in the month, when Bow Valley announced that we were going to do the vax mandate. Oh no, the 10th. Sorry, the 10th. That we were going to do our vax mandate, and then no one else had done that, and it was so funny because I got a call actually from the president of the faculty at Norquest, and he was like, how did you guys just do that? Like, how? Because he's like, this is the dream. And I guess he had been talking to others as well who were just like, this is amazing. And then over the weekend, 9 institutions followed. So by Monday, Bow Valley was old news at that point, but I don't
Yep.
care. I'm like, they did it ahead of everybody. And I was so
Hmm.
proud of them.
Yep.
And I think it shouldn't have had to come to that. If the province had just mandated this for us, I'm like, again, you're putting together the perfect scenario for outbreaks.
Yeah.
Could you have done this for us? You mandated us to be open. Could you at least put in some mandates that would have helped us be safe? And they didn't, so we did. So
Yeah. And it shouldn't come down to the institutions to have to do that and stick their necks out too,
yeah,
and become vulnerable to, the backlash that could
yeah, exactly.
definitely come, right?
Yeah,
Another thing you guys put in there is we call on the government to reintroduce province-wide universal contact tracing and quarantining, mandatory quarantining, because as we know that those two things have really fallen by the wayside over the summer and stuff like that. So, any thoughts
yeah.
on that? Like,
Well, and I know the contact tracing is a tricky one. And I think what's happened is with AHS, they don't have the resources or the capacity to do it. So
sure.
I can understand if you don't have the capacity to do it, fine. And again, but on the flip side of that, I feel like it was a casualty of the open for summer. So that staff was, moved on to bigger and better things. And one comment that I heard Dr. Hinshaw make was just, it'll take too much time and energy to bring all those people back and get them back. And they've already been repurposed in other areas, kind of thing, rehomed, if you will. And I was like, okay, so you undid the system and now you're saying it's going to take too much to do it again. So I guess, but that's not our problem.
No,
it's not my problem.
no,
it's your problem.
Well,
not ours.
Thinking back to when the pandemic first started, they did that system up pretty fast. They could probably do it again,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Exactly.
So
but if you needed to and you wanted to, you could.
You could make it happen. Of course you could. We did.
Nothing is impossible.
No, it's not impossible. So we're calling for contact tracing. We're calling for quarantining, which makes sense to me.
Yeah.
We're calling for implementing public health protocols and covering the cost of those things. That comes down to the financial, like put your money where your mouth is sort of thing, right?
Yeah, it is. Like rapid testing is not cheap, right? And again, when you're dealing with, and we won't know what we're dealing with until we start our program on September 27th. So if you're hearing this after, you probably already know what we were dealing with. But right now, Darren and I don't know what we're going to face. Yeah, in pre-September 27th days, we don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see Monday how many people actually need that resource. And but it is a financial burden. And
it is, yeah.
Post-secondaries have already had to spend so much trying to deal with this whole pandemic. I can't believe that the government wouldn't actually throw some support that way. And again, it's a measure to kind of help keep us safe. I know it's not infallible. Sorry, I can't speak right now. I mean, results for rapid testing are sometimes questionable, kind of thing. I think I read a report one time and it said, I think it's 49% accurate, kind of thing. So anybody out there, if you have some research on that, feel free to send it my way. But which is okay. But is it better than zero? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And as we add all these layers of protection, that is how you keep a community safe, right? So
well, yes, it's one more layer of protection, right?
And it allows people who haven't fully been vaccinated, it gives them the chance to continue their education in the interim, which I firmly believe in, right? So I think it is an absolute necessity that we have it, and helps ensure some safety, helps make sure that people are aware if they're COVID positive, and if they're COVID negative, like that is reassuring. Even if it's not 100% accurate, okay, sometimes it will be accurate, we'll take it. And it just sort of means that we have better control about what is COVID's presence on our campus. So we know where it is, who has it, the frequency of people that will be testing positive. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when this all comes down on Monday.
Well, and funding for all of that is so necessary because it's not sustainable for post-secondaries with our, with the way they've been cut over the past few years as well in terms of funding. There just isn't the resource there for a lot of them, right? Yeah.
Well, and the
So
pandemic is nowhere near over. And well, and I can
oh,
also see
yeah,
that this is why Bow Valley just said as of October 22nd,
yeah,
you're
we've got to,
vaccinated or you're not. Because
yeah,
again, we can't, there, like you said, it's not a bottomless pit, not an
and
infinite
it,
resource.
yeah,
We can put some money towards it, but then the pot runs dry. That's it. So,
yeah,
yeah.
can't incur that cost for that much longer.
Mhm.
So I mean, I like that one. And then finally, we call on the provincial government to provide more robust guidelines on implementing measures to effectively combat the spread of COVID-19 and for more resources to ensure compliance. Yeah, so how do we ensure compliance, right? Um,
Exactly. Well, and just even, and again, this really does put each institution in very sticky situations about compliance. And it's funny,
yeah,
I heard really an interesting comment from actually a family member who has a business and was trying to sort this out for their own business. And their HR rep said, it's not, so companies will put down a policy and here's what you need to do to comply. And what the HR specialist was saying, your first question should always be, what if they don't comply? Kind of thing. So what if we have staff or student that don't comply? And what are we supposed to do about that? So many institutions are spending money on legal advice and HR consultants and trying to understand, like, we don't want to punish anybody, but we need to keep people safe. And again, the government has been kind of absent and just a complete black hole of information. Like that.
yeah,
We're not getting any guidance from them, and you can see, and I understand each institution is trying to do the best to serve the people that use their campuses, right? Staff, faculty, students, but it's just exhausting trying to keep up with the pace, and then regularly getting blindsided by an announcement from this government, and having to react to that. So
yeah,
I'm like, it's just absolutely, it's hard to be strategic when you're constantly having to react to information that's coming your way, right? So, yeah.
So
Did I answer your question? I don't
yeah,
even know.
yeah, like giving guidelines for what to
We need
actually
guidance.
do and
Exactly.
how we react. You're right, because the last 2 years has just been this like reactionary everything. This is
Yeah,
happening, we react. This happens, we react. This happens, we react. It's exhausting. And I can
absolutely.
only imagine for policymakers um, everywhere, they're constantly reacting to a changing world that changes every day.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I don't
some
understand. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
no, it's just like some responsibility from the people that are mandating things would be slightly useful.
Well, and I think they're the ones with the data. They can identify trends. I know they do post some things, but I'm like, this is your job, like to predict, to forecast, to look ahead and give everybody like a reasonable heads up. And
Yeah,
you can't tell me mid-August that anybody did not see this coming. And if you didn't see it coming and you're in leadership at the provincial level, um, you should not have the job that you have. Like, I
yes.
firmly believe that. I'm like, sorry, you're not good at this. Go find something else. Because this, if I'm like, I have a couple degrees. Yes, I'm a science nerd. Yes, or whatever. I'm like, but I'm no expert. I would never tout myself as an expert. I could see this coming. Anybody who,
Hmm.
just from what the information that they publicly post. And I was just like, is anybody else watching this curve? I teach math. I know what exponential growth looks like.
Yeah,
I can tell doubling periods are shortening. Like, I was just like, what is happening? How is nobody reacting to this? And just wait till September. And I just remember thinking, like, I think the poor executive, like Vaughn and Mishak and Don and those guys, like the amount of times that they patiently listened to me over the summer, just like either, or read my midnight emails that, like, I'm looking through data and then I just blurt out a bunch of stuff and email to them. But I was just like, get ready, because the perfect storm is going to come. And I was like, 14 days after September 1st, just wait.
yeah, yeah.
and
Here we are.
here we are. Like, I was just like, as soon as K to 12 goes back, as soon as post-secondary goes back, after this whole open for summer, and yeah, I think I think we were talking about tweets. My favorite tweet,
Hmm.
probably so far this month, was somebody was like, after we got the emergency alert, and someone tweeted out, anybody else just get the end of best summer ever alarm? And I just and I
Like,
just
okay, it's
died
time to wake
laughing.
up.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's I just said, I think we're doing remarkably well given the hand that we've been dealt. But it is time, and I think pretty much everybody, this is something everybody can agree on, is that sorry, I'm getting a student call. Oops. So I think I think it's time. The government, and I realize they've admitted that they kind of dropped the ball in some things. Well, they kind of admitted it and then took it back.
Yeah.
Unadmitted it, but it seemed like they were taking some accountability, and then I was like, oh wait, that just got reversed. But anyway, so, but it's time. It's never too late to step up and do the right thing. So
Exactly. Yeah.
please do the right thing here. Do right by us. Help us be safe. Help us do what we all want to do, which is deliver post-secondary education to students.
Yep.
That's it. That's all we want. But we need to be safe.
We want to do our jobs. Yeah, we do.
Want to teach. I know.
Well, thank you for this, Penny. And I think that, by the time the podcast airs here, maybe we'll have seen some results. So we'll be tracking that. And so I'll add any updates to that. But if you haven't read this open letter on any of our social media platforms, listeners, you should check it out. I tweeted it. I put it on our Facebook and on our Instagram. So you may have to scroll because I'm sure there will be more content by the time you hear this. But really, really well worded, strongly worded letter from 8 different faculty association presidents. And it's really nice to see that coming together and standing together. I think that's really important, putting pressure on our illustrious government. So thanks for coming to discuss today, Penny.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Thank you. And you know what? Great conversation. And you know what? It's always a great conversation with Penny. So a huge thanks to Penny. And I did pre-record this, so the timeliness of it, but it's still so relevant no matter what. It's a big deal, and it's so wonderful to see people getting together and to be a force to be reckoned with, because I really do think that when we stand together, our voices can be a little bit louder, right? We are amplifying one another, and I think that was just exactly what was happening here. Whether or not we agree with what's happening right now, maybe we can all agree that it shouldn't be on businesses and universities and colleges and polytechnics and post-secondaries to actually implement and create policy, that maybe it should come from the government. And that's kind of what that was all about. So thanks to Penny for offering us her precious time. Okay, here it is. We're going to move into the last segment today. And I'm telling you, of course, this is a lot shorter. And this is good, though. This is good. Today I have Lindsey Fiebig. Lindsey is a counselor with the LSS. You've probably all heard her name. You've, I'm sure, encountered her in some capacity in your work at Bow Valley College. And Lindsey is just incredible. She's so real. And she's going to give us a bit of reality right now in a few minutes when I have her come on. What I really think is that right now, for me, in my journey in my life, something that I really, really have to focus on is my own wellness. And I think that that word wellness just gets tossed around, and it becomes a cliche, and it becomes it just becomes like a word without meaning to us. But I really would love for us to take a moment and step back and think about what wellness for ourselves actually means. I came across a meme on social media somewhere, and that said that people in education, like administrators or whatever it was, need to stop weaponizing the word self-care as a be-all and end-all solution for overworked, overtired, overstressed teachers. And I think that's a thing about the word wellness as well. Like, oh, why don't you just focus on your own wellness and you'll be okay? And the fact of the matter is, it's been 2 years of really not okay. None of us are really, truly doing really great, right? Some of us might be okay. Some of us are really not okay. And meeting us where we are is a huge step towards overall wellness. And I think that, if I can offer my 2 cents here, which I will because I'm the host and I can, wellness is so important for us to focus on for ourselves. All right, for ourselves, because if we can focus on our own mental health right now, then we are better for our learners, we're better for our colleagues, we're better for our coworkers, we're better for our clients, we're better for our families and our loved ones. And so I think that's something that I've really been focusing on. And I will tell you some cool stuff. I started on a wonderful journey to become a yoga teacher. And part of that is also social emotional learning, facilitation training. I know that's a mouthful, but a huge part of that is looking at things through an equity lens and thinking about it's not all about what we need necessarily, it's about what we deserve. It's about what we deserve. And, you know, that looks different for how we get what we deserve looks different for every person in every situation. And I want you to think about what do you deserve? What do you deserve in your life right now? You deserve a little bit of comfort. You deserve stability. You deserve wellness. You deserve good mental health, right? So how do we get there? How do we get there? And I think that's something else that I've really come to the realization of just honestly in the last like 24 hours is that, it's okay for me to take up space. It's really okay for you and I to take up space in our own lives and to understand that our wellness affects change and inspires other people's wellness. And a thing that I wanted to really encourage and tell you today is that there is enough space for you. Space is infinite. So something that, like this mantra that I've said to myself is there is enough space for me. There is enough space for me. And that's where, I can meet myself where I am in my journey to wellness. And if I'm having a bad day, there's still enough space for me. Okay, I'm not a counselor, but you know who is? Lindsey Fiebig. So coming up next is my interview with Lindsey about what instructors and faculty and staff can do to just, focus on their wellness. So I'd like to welcome Lindsey Fiebig to the podcast, and she's here today to talk to us a little bit about mental health strategies. Hi, Lindsey, welcome.
Thank you.
So the reason I asked Lindsey to give us a little bit of her precious time is because I think we're all feeling it, and I know I am. Everything is so up in the air and uncertain. There's a lot of back and forth with the college, with the government, with everything. And I think a lot of us are looking for ways to cope. So I've asked Lindsey to come on and just give us a few quick tips to try and keep our mental health intact in this difficult time.
All right, thank you. So just from the get-go, I will give Dara a link to a sway that I made actually last year about coping skills to kind of get through COVID-19. I made it for faculty, but it ended up going out to the entire community because I think it was helpful. So there's lots and lots of things and strategies and links to other documents in there. So if this is something you want to know more about, there is some groundwork there. But today I'll just talk about some real basics. And a big part of what's going on right now is the uncertainty. And most people don't live well in a state of uncertainty. We like structure, we like to know what we're doing every day. And one of the things that I've been reminding people is that for like a good year and a half, we were told with the threat of actual physical death that we needed to, isolate and stay safe and all of these things. And most of our brains took that in and said, okay, I'll do this. And it's going to take a little while to unwind some of those thoughts as well. And, I think some of us were doing that unwinding this summer, and then the fourth wave hit and we're right back kind of where we started of needing to be really safe and isolating. And that's really hard on humans in general. So one of the things I've been telling both students and my friends and acquaintances and strangers on the street is just to be really unbelievably kind to yourself right now. You don't need to like change the world right now. You don't need to learn a new language. You don't need to, you know, be hustling projects. Like, you just need to survive through this right now. And I think we've been doing this for so long that we're normalizing the experience, but it's not normal at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know for myself, like, I have to constantly remind myself of that. Like, this isn't normal. This isn't normal life. This isn't how, like, we're meant to be.
Yeah.
And but when something goes on for this long, you know, it's easy to lose track of that this is not normal.
Yeah, and I think it can have some really lasting effects too. And, you know, we are even coming out of it with I think some even PTSD and these kinds of things that are just going to last with us forever. And, you know, every time someone gets a sniffle now, you know, you hear someone sneeze, your body just goes, "Ugh."
Absolutely.
And yeah, so like, what does that look like to be like radically kind to yourself right now? What ideas can you give people for that?
So, you know, as a parent, for me, it's about not overloading us. And, you know, I was actually at my chiropractor yesterday and we were talking about this, and I just said, like, you know, I kind of look at day to day, because things are so rapidly changing right now. Like, what do I need today? What do I need to do today? And she laughed and she's like, oh, I think I'm hour to hour at that point.
Yeah.
This point. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine too. Like, what do I need right now? And, you know, because sometimes I need to go for a walk and I need fresh air and I need sunshine. Sometimes I need to crawl under blankets and, like, disassociate and watch TV for hours. And so I kind of check in with myself to see, like, do I need to connect with people or do I need to disconnect from people? Do I need to go on social media and kind of, is that relaxing for me right now or is it stressing me out? And so I'm not a real hard and fast, like, you know, cut this out or stop doing this. For me, it's more like each day I kind of check in with myself and I'm like, what do I need today? Do I need, you know, warm food and a good chat with a friend on the phone? Or do I need, you know, a bike ride and really bring my heart rate up? Or do I need, you know, something just quiet? There was, you know, my kids are very loud. And so one day last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, I put on a podcast on earphones and I do embroidery, which I find very meditative. And that's what I needed that day. And I could absolutely hear people asking me questions, but I just kept pointing to my earphones, like as if I couldn't hear them. And they went and asked their father things. So it was great because that's what I needed that day. I needed to just, like, not completely disengage in a healthy way. And so that's what I did. And so,
Awesome.
but there's other days where I want to play with them and that's what I need that day. So
yeah, I like that you pointed out disengage in a healthy way, because there's a lot of really unhealthy ways that we can disengage. And I know through the last 2 years, I'm certainly guilty of doing unhealthy things to disengage. But trying to bring in those, like you said, meditative, right? Like embroidery is meditative. I find, well, I mean, I do regular yoga. Obviously, that's very meditative.
yeah.
So there's like those really important things, so that meditative piece that kind of brings some mindfulness back,
Yeah.
where you're kind of in your own body in that moment, paying attention to the things that your physical body needs and then your mind, right?
Yeah. And so I think mindfulness has become such a buzzword.
Yeah, for sure.
And people don't really know what it is. And a lot of times when I introduce, we'll say, meditation or mindfulness to people, they're like, oh, I can't do that because I can't, you know, sit with my legs crossed, or I don't have time to sit there for, you know, a half an hour and stare at a candle. And I'm like, oh, well, that's great, because that's not what I'm going to teach you at all. Because I think it gets kind of a bad rap that, you know, mindfulness is only yoga or mindfulness is only meditation, which are certainly wonderful tools. Don't get me wrong. I also do yoga and I love it. And it's really important for me. but it's not everyone's jam, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so what I talk about is grounding skills and grounding techniques. And I think that takes some of the buzzword out of it a little bit.
Yep.
And what grounding is being in the moment. It's about, literally sometimes putting your feet on the floor and describing to yourself what that feels like. Where can you feel your body touching the floor? Where can you feel your body touching the back of your chair? Whatever it might be. I suggest for people all the time to go on mindful walks where they just, they don't obsess, overthink about things during their walk. Yeah. that they look at the leaves changing color right now, or the wind on their face, or how their feet feel touching the ground. If you have a dog, dogs are 100% mindful all the time.
Yes,
so
they are.
Just watch your dog and, just focus on your dog and see what they're doing. So that's a really easy way to be mindful. Mm-hmm. One of the other things that I teach people that I find a really, really helpful skill, because you can basically do it anywhere. It's called 5-4-3-2-1. And 5-4-3-2-1 is a grounding technique, and it starts by you need to just kind of sit or stand in a place. And it's first is 5 things that you can see around you. And then it's 4 things that you can physically feel. So not feelings, but like whether your feet are on the floor or your back is on the chair or your hands are in your lap, like what are physical feelings you feel in your body, maybe even your heart beating, all sorts of stuff. And then it's 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And I use this actually all the time with my kids when they are like spinning in circles. Yep. And it brings them down immediately, especially once we get to hearing, because they have to actually stop and listen. And it's like gets real quiet and everybody's real focused. It just kind of brings everything down into your body, and it just brings you right into the moment. Mm-hmm. I love it because you can do it anywhere. So I've taught lots of students to do it on the C train when they're feeling really anxious. Yep. You can do it in the middle of class without really anybody noticing. And that goes for instructors too. You might just need to take a minute in class to kind of recenter yourself if you're feeling panicky or anxious. And if everybody's doing busy work, nobody's going to know what you're doing.
Yeah, totally.
So it just takes a few minutes, and it is quite effective, I find, for most people.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. That's really good advice, being kind to yourself right now and finding some techniques to sort of ground yourself. Thank you so much for your time today, Lindsey. We've really, I'm sure faculty will have gotten a lot out of this. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay. Again, Lindsey, thank you for sharing yourself with us. And I hope that every person could take a little bit of something from that conversation. And like she says it so right. It's that, it's okay to not be okay. None of us are really okay. These things that we're living through right now are absolutely unprecedented in our lives. And, it's okay to take a minute or two to just be not okay and then, move forward and use some strategies. And so I really hope that you got something out of that. And I want to thank Lindsey for her time, for her space, and for taking up space in our podcast, because it was invaluable to me. So I really hope you got something out of that. Here are my final thoughts. These are the final thoughts of an unscripted, rambling Dara. Take a moment to take up space in your own life, take up space in your own mind, and see where you are. Take some inventory of where you're at. Where are you at as a professional? Where are you at as a person who serves a population at a post-secondary? Where are you at with the world in your feelings of it. And I think it's really important for us to just acknowledge those things. We don't have to fight about them. We don't have to fight our feelings. We don't have to fight within ourselves. But it's really valuable to acknowledge. Just acknowledge that, you know what, I'm here and maybe I'm not all right. Maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm surviving. Maybe I found a way to thrive. So where are you? And what can you do to make sure that you are taking up your own space and that you are allowing yourself to do so without guilt? And where are you on your journey through wellness? Speaking of wellness, before I leave you today, I just want to encourage you that if you really are struggling, please reach out to Homewood Health. We've sent it out in many of our email communications, the link to Homewood Health. Honestly, too, you can just Google it and it'll bring you to the page. I've used it and I got some good service through it in a time when I really needed it in the recent year. And I think that it's a really good springboard to get you into a place where you might need to be. So if you are struggling, please do not struggle alone. You're not alone. We're all in this together. And please reach out and ask for help. There's no shame in that. Okay, everybody. Happy fall. Let's take some joy from what we've got going on. Look at our learners' faces if you can. Listen to their voices if you're online, and look at your coworkers. And you know what? I'm grateful for you all. So with gratitude, that's all I have for you today. Tune in next month for a new episode of You're on Mute, the BVCFA podcast. Until then,